Welcome back to the Iron Circle podcast. Today we have brother James Thomas going to be with us. We're excited to talk to him a little bit about his fitness journey and pretty much anything else that entails that that's influenced or been an impact on his life through this time. So, James, thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and so I guess for starting off, for someone that doesn't know you, of course, we've known you forever,
For a long time.
for a long time. What can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing, your background, and then what was your relationship with your health and weight like before everything changed?
Sure. I grew up here in Longview till I was about ninth grade. Then we moved up to Illinois. That's where you guys met me. And y'all knew me as like the athlete, the basketball player, the whatever sport we had. That's the sport that's what I played, and that was my reputation. That's kind of who I was. And I stayed that way through college and even after, and when I worked for a church in Connecticut, I was the athletic director, the PE teacher, and a basketball coach.
Yeah.
And, I just kind of, that was my world, and try to stay fit, try to stay whatever. And then I got married. That's the beautiful life of marriage, where you get 3 solid meals a day. But what didn't change is I didn't change the other habits that I had as a single guy, and I was still eating kind of after that. And that's when I started struggling with weight. And that's for around 24, 25. That's whenever the weight issue started happening. Before this journey that I started, I was slowly dying, and I didn't even know it. But at the same time, I kind of did. I know we'll probably talk about it a little bit later, but it reminded me of my own father, who passed away due to health concerns, and I was just on that road. And I was on that road quicker than he ever was. And that was a tough start to get where I needed to get to. But yes, weight has always been, I would say for the last 12 years, it's been a struggle.
So when you first got married, again, fitness, single guy, super active,
easy,
not necessarily eating 3 square meals a day.
Yeah.
Just kind of eating here and there because you're just busy doing whatever.
Right.
But then, you get more structured, more settled down, if you will, in marriage, and then those 3 meals, and then before you know it, the weight starts coming on.
Mm-hmm.
When did you start to notice that the weight was going on? Did you have any did you work on it at any point where I've gained 15, 20 pounds, I need to cut back? Or did you have any of that? Or when was it kind of I need to do something about it?
When I first noticed it, it was probably about 6 months in. I had gained about 30 pounds. That's the sad thing about me. I can gain weight really, really fast.
Yeah. Same.
But gaining that weight, I said, "Oh man, I gotta fix this." And I tried at first, and I just kind of tried to do what I used to do, and realized I couldn't. So I didn't. When I realized I couldn't do the things that I was doing before physically, because I just kind of rested on that. I rested on what I could do physically and not changing anything else. Well, then I just kind of gave up. And then we moved here, and kind of things changed on that end of it. But that was it was around that time that I realized that things were kind of going that direction. But I didn't learn, but I just kind of became used to it, used to being a little bit bigger, and just kind of steered into the skid in a sense where, this was my life. And I didn't want it to be, and I would always try to say that I didn't want this, but still ended up being my way anyway.
So it just became something just an acknowledgement, almost, that I'm losing the battle and I can't do anything about it.
Absolutely.
And it's because the things that used to work no longer work.
Correct.
And you were having a hard time adjusting to whatever needed to be done.
Actually, exactly what it was.
Yeah. Well, so basically, it sounds like the the problem started when you first got married. So how long have you been married now?
This will September will be 12 years.
Okay, well, congratulations on 12 years.
Thank you.
So I guess in about probably a year and a half ago is when you started really losing the weight. Is that about right? So about for almost a little over 10 years, struggling with weight as a constant thing. And then it sounds like the kind of the wake up call several years back was when your dad passed. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, I mean, it was a wake up call, but it was also a setback. So I was already big, and I don't know what the weight I was, but after my dad passed, it broke me. He was the rock of our whole family, and he died so suddenly.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember I was at work, and my brother, my mother, my sister, they were all trying to call me. I was in a meeting. I was giving a meeting as a manager there at my job, and I just remember kept trying to cancel it and not knowing what was going on. And my brother had told me that my dad had collapsed, and then I had to hang up the phone, go back to the meeting, and finish the meeting. And then right after the meeting, I found out he passed, and it was my world died at that moment. And I made some bad decisions at that time, but probably one of the worst decisions I made was just letting my health get out of control. Within 3 months, I gained probably 70 pounds because food was my comfort. It wasn't anything other than this was my escape. And it was an easy one because it was just there. Yeah. And I could always have access to it. Food is easy to get.
Yeah.
And the bad food is cheaper than the healthy food. And I found all the ways to get what I wanted and what I felt like I needed to feel good. And that's what food does. It made me feel good.
Did you catch yourself in that, or was it just like a blind coping that you didn't even realize what?
Absolutely blind. You get lost in it. It's a drug, is what it is. Food is a legitimate. It's necessary for us, but it's a drug. And especially with what they put into the foods nowadays. I mean, you read ingredients, they're this long for bread. Yeah. I mean, I stocked bread as a side job, and you saw it whenever you helped that time. Like, you were reading the ingredients being this long for white bread. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's drugs that they put in there, and I've done a lot of research on it, and realized like, okay, this is an addiction that I have.
Yeah, they go Pringles, for example, with all those ingredients. They said it's not necessarily like they're chefs, now they're engineers, basing it off your tongue and the nerve receptors. So then food becomes literally, like you said, addictive. And sugar, they said, is more addictive than cocaine. I mean, yeah, I could totally see that.
So yeah, it becomes a losing battle on two fronts. Like, one, saying no to the wrong food, but then the access to the wrong food versus the healthy food, or the budget involved with it becomes a lot more difficult. So it just seems like you said, again, a losing battle. Like, the wrong choices are so prevalent, so abundant. It's so easy to do what's wrong in regard to food. It's so hard to do what's right. Like, I'm sure that was another point of justification. It's like, it's just too hard to be healthy. What were some of the biggest frustrations you had with your health during those 10 years?
I have a laundry list of things. I'll give some frustrations. I dealt with acid reflux a lot. I couldn't sleep because of it. Like, I had horrible sleep. I was pre-diabetic for a long time, and I would deal with having to wake up probably every hour to go to the restroom because that was just like my night. It was all the time. Couldn't breathe. I mean, my wife would tell me like she would wake up worried because she would hear me stop breathing, and I probably died several times in my sleep, just because that's just, you literally stop breathing, and you like pass out, and that's how you wake up. I these are funny ones, but I couldn't tie my shoes. I would have to pre-tie my shoes and then put my shoe on that way, or wear slip-ons. Couldn't wear a belt because I literally couldn't reach to my waist. Like my arms couldn't reach to my waist. That's how big I was. Always either wore suspenders or just, you know, did something else, figured out some other way. Those are some of the big frustrations that I had on a daily basis.
Wow. That's a lot to deal with on a daily basis. So I've mentioned energy, sleep. Is there any, did it affect your life in any other way of like confidence, relationships you have with other people, or even your spiritual life? Did it have any effects on that? And if so, how did it?
So as far as confidence, I had none. I got no confidence in anything, in myself. The only confidence I have is that I knew that I could get the next meal. That was my confidence. Um, and it would give me that momentary, like, switch where I was okay. My relationships, it absolutely affected every aspect of my relationships with my spouse, because I couldn't sleep in the bed because I couldn't lay flat. So because I had acid reflux, so I'd have to sleep on the couch, literally sitting up like as I am right now. And it was that was if I knew if I ate certain foods like that, I wouldn't even start in the bed. Like, and it was just that was just normal. And with my kids, like I was a couch parent is what I call it. I was parenting my children from sitting down on my couch. I wasn't able to get up unless I just got angry enough. And yes, it made me angry because I didn't know how else to feel. I was hurting, and which absolutely affected my spiritual life because I didn't feel like I was good enough. And it sounds crazy, I know, but you don't feel good enough to go to God when you don't feel good enough about yourself.
Well, yeah.
And if you feel bad enough about your own self, then that's the devil's way of saying, no, 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 no. This is your way. You don't need to go to God. Yeah. You just need to go back to your drug. And my drug was food or whatever it was that I was eating or drinking at, at the time, like sodas and, sweet tea and energy drinks and everything else that just made me feel good in the moment. Right? It was literally keeping me from going to God because I didn't need to.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, like you're that honest with it, because I think that's a big thing in any type of addiction. And honestly, it's something that's not talked about enough, that that feeling of unworthiness. That's the time that we need to go to God the most.
Yeah.
But the devil does use that in order to stop you. Like, we're not going to restore that relationship with God because, yeah, you aren't worthy. Well, that's the point. Right. And unfortunately, we get in our own head. The devil gets in our head, and yeah, it just takes a big toll. I think that's whatever. In your case, food. In other cases, it is a drug addiction, like a literal drug, or it is alcohol, or it's something they shouldn't be looking at. It could be a lot of things that I just don't feel like God's. Why should I be able to go to God and ask for Him for help when I have done wrong so many times, time and time again?
It's a type of sin to be a glutton, and sometimes I understand that there are people who are overweight because they have a health issue that causes certain things, but I also feel like we're in an age where we have the tools and access to where we can take control of that. An opioid drug, is no different of a sin than alcohol, which is no different of a sin than being a glutton, and that's where I was. I may have not been smoking, I may have not been, drinking or anything like that, but that gluttony was the besetting sin of my life.
And I think, well, so with alcohol, with drugs, with these different things, a lot of it is the reason that they're not the only reason, but one of the reasons that they're wrong is because of the sobriety factor. We're now putting ourselves into subjection of something else. It's now preventing us and prohibiting us from being able to fully activate and fully do what we need to do.
Yeah.
And because if you're drunk, well, then you're impaired. If you're on a drug and you're high, then you're impaired in other ways. But if you're overweight, you can't do certain things then you're impaired. And I think that's not something that's taught or preached about enough either, because it is one of those like everybody struggles with it, and it's easier to call out things that only certain people struggle with rather than something that everybody struggles with.
Yeah, it's easy to preach against, alcohol. It's easy to preach against, different things like that. But it's hard to preach against being healthy.
Yeah.
Because, I use this verse in Timothy where it talks about, you know, bodily exercise profiteth little.
Yeah.
But I remember a sermon that Gary Mann preached when I was in college. He said, bodily exercise profiteth little, but it profits.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah, it may not. It doesn't need to be the most important thing in your life because it can't be because then
Yeah.
then that's a whole different
Right.
issue.
Yeah.
But if it's not important in your life, then you're actually going against what the Bible says.
Mhm.
Because the Bible wants you to profit. God wants you to profit. And if you're not taking that initiative to have the exercise, to be healthy, then you're not profiting the way that He wants you to profit.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that over the last year and a half that I've profited in different ways that I have forgotten that I even could.
Yeah, because you limit what you're able to do,
Absolutely.
the length of time you're able to do it, whether that's in a day or, of course, think of your lifetime, because that leads to diseases, heart disease, things, people dying prematurely. It goes on and on and on. And yes, I wholeheartedly agree with what the Bible says. It profiteth little. Yeah, being a spiritual person, much more important.
Much more.
But it does not negate the fact that bodily exercise is profitable. It's still profitable.
Yeah.
Man, I want to take a moment to invite you to the Iron Circle. The Iron Circle is a free online Christian men's community. It's a brotherhood of men who encourage, support, challenge, and hold each other accountable to their goals so we can become more disciplined and become the man that God has called us to be. It's completely free to join. We'd love to see you on the inside where you can find more content like this podcast and many other resources. So click the link that's going to be attached to the description of this podcast, and we'll see you guys on the inside.
I was gonna say because if we're supposed to be a good steward and this is our temple, you don't, you shouldn't maybe get tattoos. You shouldn't do this or that to your body because you should be a steward. But then I flipped it. I was like, well, if we're supposed to be steward, that means take care of it. And if we're supposed to do His will, you have to have energy to do His will. But if you're drugging your temple, it's like a car. If you're not taking care of the maintenance, you ain't gonna go far. And I think, and like you said, it's a super. Whether it's from the pulpit or we have classes that are men only and women only, and we talk about it, I don't think it is mentioned enough. Not that I've had a weight issue, but I've had the opposite of where my health has been bad enough that I can't, like on the court, I used to be, if a ball was loose, I'd be all over it. I don't have the initial umph anymore as I used to. And then I realized, man, my health, I'm on the opposite end.
Right.
I may not be overweight, but I'm what you would call a skinny fat. They call it, well, you look skinny, but you're totally not conditioned. And I can't do as much. I can't work on my, come home, I don't have the mental ability to focus on, I got to post for my detailing. I get in the school community to do this. I have to worry about my weekend job. And then if my health is bad, then I'm playing catch up. It's like a credit card that you pay everything and then you're trying to work to catch up to it, and I think that's the flip side. It's not only weight, it can be the opposite end. And plenty of people that look like they're healthy, but they're not. Right. The moment you put them on the court and get to the test, it's like, you can't do much. And if it comes to defending your family, I was like, how many swings could I take before I'm panting? Sure. And then I'm taking advantage. Yeah, it's something that we don't talk about enough.
And I think people always run to the extreme of fitness to say that's unneeded. Exactly. Well, we're not talking about being. God's not calling everybody to be bodybuilders. No. We're not trying to be like all flat. No, it's just like to be overall a healthy person. Yeah. And I mean, for me, I've got some weight I need to lose, and that's something I work towards. And I think a lot of people don't talk about it because it's something they struggle with as well. Sure. I can't say it's important to be healthy because I'm not the perfect picture of health for myself. But I think it's acknowledging, yes, I have an issue that I need to work on, but I need to let people know this is important. So I do want to move on to the next question, and that was, how many times would you say that you tried to lose the weight before the last time you lost the weight?
Hundreds.
Hundreds of times.
Easily hundreds. And I love my wife so much because every time I would say it, she was always say, what can I do? And I would always I would have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have a plan. Like, oh, let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. Yeah, and it was often. It was, I mean, for the last 10 years, once or twice a month,
Wow.
easily. Because I would see myself. I'd be like, okay, I gotta fix this.
Yeah.
But then, it just didn't happen.
What would happen because you had a plan? You're like, I have the motivation at the moment. What would happen that just kept making that fail? That cycle of failure.
So there's a few things. One that is, I think a lot of people can relate to, is money. Sometimes to start being healthy, it takes money you may not have because you were spending that money on things that were not good for you.
Mm-hmm.
So the things that are unhealthy are cheaper.
Yeah.
But you start buying more and more and more and more of it, and you realize I'm spending way more money, but you don't see it because it's a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, instead of just spending the money on, whatever the healthy food is and like the meal preps and all this stuff and, the things that help you be healthy. The healthier foods. Yes, they are more expensive, but you're eating less, you're not spending more.
Right.
It's more on the front end. But then, I would look at it as we have to pay our rent, we have to pay our, our car payment, we have to pay our insurance, we got to pay this and that, all, everything else. And especially when you got kids, and it's like, man, I can't afford to do it when that was just an excuse. Another thing that would happen is that I would go a couple days and do it, and I'd get on the scale and see a number I don't like, and sometimes you would start and you'd actually gain weight, like, okay, what happened?
Yeah, this is right.
And then you just give up. There's that, and then there's just fatigue. I think that was probably the biggest one for me, is fatigue. Is I would just get tired, and you again go back to the word, and I think the word is proper as the drug. You go through, you hit a point of fatigue, of that's part of your withdrawals of all that stuff. You get headaches, you get tired, you get cranky, you get angry, and I'm just like, well, I don't want to be like this, so I'm just gonna go get me some fries from McDonald's. I'm gonna get me a sweet tea from Chicken Express, or I'm gonna get me a case of Mountain Dew and drink half of it in one day, and that was easy.
Wow.
But that was, there's a multitude of reasons. Those are probably the most prominent ones.
Yeah, what you said was very big. You said the upfront cost. So when I was in the hospital, and then I looked at how much I spent up to that point, close to 40,000. I was like, and I had to spend it because the money had to be spent.
Sure.
And I'm like, man, and even though insurance helped, I was like, even if you want to take out what insurance paid, I still spent several $1,000s. I'm like, if I bought how much of that thousands of dollars could have gone to healthy? I mean, like you said, your wife Judith has helped me to the point I'm like, stop. We're like, we're gonna get grass fed. I'm like, we can't afford all this. And we would go to Sam's Club, and slowly but surely it became natural, and this is the norm. And then when we did eat, it was cutting back on my portion. But then another thing you said, when you do eat good food and nutrient dense, you don't get as full. And another part was I don't have time, so we had to change my lifestyle. When I come home, I actually help cook. And I talked to a farmer. It was our very first interview. But something he said for his family was, well, our kitchen and table is our family time. We've made it into the family time. Instead of, I don't have time, he says, no, we've taken that and made it into our family bonding time. We make our food. He said, that is where we do it. And I was like, so it got rid of the excuse of I don't have time to do it, rather than everyone's going to learn how to cook. You did the potatoes, you did this, and then that was our hangout time, rather than just the wife do it. And that's been very big for, I think.
What would you say versus the earlier attempts in the last attempt? What would you say was the one element or elements that were missing that were kind of, I guess, it was the game changer for it the last time?
I put myself out there. So I made the world my accountability partner. I would try to keep it secret because it's shame.
Yeah.
To be bigger, it's shameful, and that's how the world sees it, and it's true. And for anybody who's listening, like I understand the shame that you feel being big. I get it. Um, and you don't want to step on scale. You don't want to tell anybody your weight. You don't want to show anybody what you really look like. That's why you wear bigger clothes and baggy clothes and wear hoodies in the summertime in Texas. You know, that's these are things that you do because you feel that shame. But when I decided, and I don't know if you remember, but I put myself out there
Yeah.
and was telling people this is what I'm doing. And I was letting people know, and then people started responding like, "Hey, let me know if I can help. Great job, keep it up, do all the stuff." And so it made me feel like, okay, I gotta keep this up.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the big things. My Brit was great in helping me get to that point. She was always so supportive, and I couldn't have done it without her. I really couldn't have. And then I realized that I didn't want my kids, my future potential grandchildren, to ask me the same questions that they asked me about my dad. I would rather just answer them in person. And when they started acting, because they started to get more curious about my father in the last couple of years, more so than Ryan, who never met him, and Jet, who doesn't remember him. They didn't get a chance to really get to know him.
Yeah.
And I have to tell stories. And to them, he's like the superhero, which he was. But I didn't want that to be my story.
Yeah.
And I may not live, past 70. I don't even know how long I'll live, but I could die tomorrow. But if I don't want it to be because of my health.
Yeah.
And I can control that a little bit.
So that switch being flipped for you was honestly the decision. I'm going to put myself out there, and then letting the world keep you accountable. So accountability, you would say, is paramount. It's required.
It's required. You can do it on your own, and you can. But I would say, especially for people who are listening, you've tried already. I know you have. As a big person, I know you've tried. I know you've wanted to do it, and it just hasn't worked. Do something different. Try something different. Try letting people know, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and keep them updated.
Yeah. What systems, aside from the accountability, because I know you posted a lot about it, and maybe this is part of your system, but what system did you put in place that helped you stay consistent down the line?
Meal preps was a big one. And then learning, I don't know if it was a system, but it was research.
Okay.
So finding out what was good and what was bad, what we thought was good, but isn't. Things that seem like they're okay, but they're really not.
Yeah. And
just doing that extra thing, and then finding out what worked for me, and then it was implementing it into my everyday life. That it had to be that. I think the biggest thing for me was getting rid of the things that would cause me to fall back. And it's hard, especially with kids, and they have snacks. I love their snacks.
Yeah.
So it was, but eventually, I'll do the dad tax, or one, I'll take one.
Yeah.
But that's it. Like that's my.
It's still very limited. You're being very intentional.
It is.
Yeah.
And the systems, everybody's different. Everybody has a different thing. But knowing what I was going to eat every day, knowing the calorie counts that I was going to have, and knowing the ratio from what the proteins to the calories to, the carbs that I was going to have,
Yeah.
but healthy carbs, because there are healthy carbs, and then different things like those different situations. But I will say, and this is the other end of it, that the system that I put, and I didn't know if I was going to bring this up or not, but the system that I put in place was that when I got hungry, which was often, when I got hungry, I prayed. So it was a weird thing. I would take a moment and just ask him to help. Did it work every time? No, but it helped.
Yeah.
When he became a center, I want to say he, God, became a center focus of my reasoning to get healthier. Because I had plans, I had things I want to do, I had things that I want to be able to do that I couldn't do a year and a half ago. I couldn't walk down the street and talk to anybody. I couldn't have a conversation without having to take a breath. You know, that was how bad it was.
Yeah.
Especially if I was standing. You know, and when he became one of the, if not the number one reason for me to do this, it changed. You know, putting him as a, I don't know if the word, I'm trying to find the word, putting him as a,
As your
as
wife.
as a why, the safety net.
Mhm.
The safety net was always something else. It was always, you know, a burger or chicken strips or fries or pizza or whatever, or ice cream or whatever it was.
Kind of like, yeah, your fallback, if you will.
Yeah,
If I'm struggling, I'm not going to run to a cheeseburger. I'm going to fall back on Christ.
right.
Yeah.
And and I would, for a little while I would fall back on my wife and she would help me. And not anything against her, I needed something else because I tried that before.
Yeah.
And she's always supportive. And when I didn't want to disappoint in more than I already do.
Mhm.
And felt like this was something that I could take control of,
Yeah.
in a sense. And I needed him to do it.
That's really good. And when you said that, I was like, of course, I've never really made the connection with fitness in that sense of saying no to a food item to stop and pray. But when you bring it down to its base, it's a temptation.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bible even says that there's no temptation that's they're all common to man. Someone else has dealt with this temptation, and that He always provides a way of an escape.
Yeah.
And whether it's a temptation of food or whether it's a temptation of lust or whether it's a temptation of anger, there's always a way of an escape. And you taking that time to stop and pray and ask God for that help is is Him giving you or you bringing it to the forefront. Where's my way of escape? Jesus Christ being the way of escape. Like, just help me with this, and to give you that strength. Because at the end of the day, like that's not a prayer that God doesn't want to answer.
Sure.
Like that's something God wants you to help with. And the reason it making Him your why, your center, your focal point. I think that's super important, and that's a really good. I'm glad that you brought that up because I don't think I would have asked that question. And I guess with that, then let me go ahead and ask this question. And so your why, your reasoning, obviously being able to do more for Christ
Mm-hmm.
was one of them. More for your be able to be around for your family. Was there any other motivating factors like that?
Man, those were my big ones. I wanted to be a good example for, my own kids.
Yeah.
And I didn't want my kids to be embarrassed
Mm.
of me. I didn't want people to see me and think, and that it's selfish, but to think like, oh, he's just another one of those.
Mm.
Um, I don't. It's not. There's no secret answer to it. It's, you know I didn't want to be ashamed of who I was.
Mm.
And I have plenty of things in my life to be ashamed of. We all do.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to be ashamed of the fact that I couldn't sit and sleep properly because I there were seats I couldn't fit into. I can assure you the seat I'm sitting in now I couldn't fit into, you know, a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Wow.
I just couldn't. I just wouldn't be wide enough.
Mm.
It's just different things. But the family, being there, being able to be a good husband, being able to be a good father, being able to be a good son to my father was the key factors in that. When I say father, I think you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to be able to go to other countries and witness and go on mission trips and and do those things. But you can't do it if you can't walk.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Yeah. Mm.
Did you see yourself when you started doing this? Did you also see yourself in a light of, there's a lot of people with this, and somebody's going to have to be the, so to speak, the pioneer. Did you ever look at yourself like, I'm going to have to be, as I do this, I'm going to have to be one of the ones that's going to like show the way, so to speak. Did you ever think about it that way?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
I really didn't. I didn't want to be that guy. I know it sounds bad. I understand that I may be that. I may be somebody that somebody looks at and says, "Oh, he did it. Maybe I can do it." And the truth is, you can. Like I never thought that I would get to the point I am now, and I'm not where exactly where I want to be, but I've lost 180 pounds
Wow.
in a year and a half
Yeah.
as of this morning.
It's a whole person, you know?
It's a healthy person too. Um, I was 185 pounds when I got married, so
Mhm.
that's yeah. So I've lost an excessive amount of weight, and I understand that. I understand that may not be everybody's story. Some people may only lose 50, but they'll feel great.
Mhm.
Some people may lose 200 and they feel great. Who knows? I I know that, and I know I was reluctant to even do this just because I didn't want to be the guy that people said, "Oh, what did you do?" And again, I think that is part of the shame that I still carry. I still carry it. It's still there. It's not like it just goes away because it became a part of me.
Mhm.
And hopefully, eventually, it just becomes a dormant part of my life. But you know, I'm people come and ask me now, like, "Hey, like you lost weight?" I'm like, "Yeah, I lost a little bit of weight, here and there, And then they're like, "How much have you lost?" And I pretend like I don't know the number. I think it's like this number, and I because I don't want to be braggadocious about it. I think that's where the other
Yeah.
part of it. I also don't want to be the guy who that's all I talk about
Right.
because that happens.
Becomes your identity.
Becomes my whole identity. But if I can help somebody in that, then absolutely I want to because I know that there are guys that struggle and they want that's what they want.
Yeah. And I think just the fact that your reluctancy to do the interview, right, to be that person, puts you in the right perspective. You're not trying to make a name for yourself. You're not trying to look how amazing I am. But the fact that, like you said, you didn't view yourself as a trailblazer, as a pioneer. You're just a guy. You're just a regular guy that needed to lose weight and you lost it. And I think that simplicity of it, though, can be encouraging and motivating for those that are like, I'm not a special person. I don't have these amazing abilities. It's just, you just decided I'm going to get it done. And I'm going to get it done, which leads me to my next question is, on the days that you didn't feel motivated to go to the gym or to eat the right thing, how did you push through that? How did you stay focused?
It didn't always happen. There were days that I failed, and I heard a statement once that the only way you truly fail is when you give up. And you may fail one day,
Mm-hmm.
but don't fail the next day.
Yeah.
And the days that I felt like, man, I just didn't have it. I just didn't feel like I wanted to go to the gym. There times I go sit at the gym for 20 minutes before I even went in, and I would just be like, okay, there's a reason I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And I just had to list the reasons. I had to find the reasons. And it was usually my family, and it was always God, and it was always something else I would find like, well, I want to fit into this shirt. I don't want to wear suspenders. That was a big one for me. I want to be able to walk, you know, on vacation whenever we go on vacations, with the different reasons
Mm-hmm.
that would just get me. So I started making a list of reasons that I could refer back to whenever I needed that extra push I needed. And it happens weekly
Mm-hmm.
that you're going to need it until it becomes a habit, until it becomes like, oh, like, oh man, I missed the gym today.
Yeah.
I need it. It's been 2 days. I have to go. Like I don't. Yeah, because you get busy. I work two jobs. I'm busy.
Yeah.
I don't always get a chance to go to the gym. Like that's life. Life does get in the way. But life doesn't keep you from being healthy.
Yeah. I think there was we actually interviewed Pastor about spirituality and about a few other things with that. But one thing about failing, he talked about whatever it is that the just man falls 7 times and rise up again. There's going to be the days you fail, but like you said, we fail today, but don't let you fail tomorrow.
Right.
get up the next day, and because you remembered your why. And I think Proverbs even talks about that, like tells the wicked not to lay wait because he's coming back. Like you're not gonna go spoil his home. You're not gonna take his thing. He's coming back because he has something to live for. And knowing your why, I think that's a great mental exercise and a great way to stay focused on. People say it in business, if you're going to start something, have a strong why. Why are you trying to make this change? And you just mentioned that, like there were some big reasons, big whys, and then there's a lot of like sub whys, mini whys of I want to be able to fit in that shirt. I want to walk on vacation. I want to be able to do this. And those things, it sounds like really were motivational in a sense when you had no motivation to actually do it, that helped you out huge.
It's like you said the finding your whys. I think that is the ultimate, and then also you're kind of thinking of what you have to fight for. Like there's a lot to lose, because when I was doing the 100-day challenge in a row, I went a little over. But for me, it was exactly that. Why am I doing it? And part of it was I made myself accountable to everybody.
Yeah.
I was like,
I remember that.
And then by day 890, I started having people ask me, and then I knew like I have to do it because of this. It wasn't because I just want to. I wanted to be. I couldn't do one push-up. I couldn't hang on the bar. When I played ball, I think one of the first times we played in Kilgore, I jumped up in the air to throw the ball. I had no strength. My legs felt so weak. My back was weak, and it scared me. And I was like, I've never, like, if someone wants to catch me outside, I'm gone. It was a little bit of a fear, but also like self-awareness, like, holy cow, I am like very weak. And so my why became very strong. Even when I was sick, like you said, life gets in the way. It certainly does. So when I worked 100 days, did I go to the gym every day? No. Some of it was I did what I could on the floor and push-ups. But I think the biggest one was I wasn't quitting. I was doing something always. And I think, the whys, that is the ultimate. If you don't have it, then at some point you're going to I think Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan. He's like, until you get punched in the mouth or nose. And it's like when you get punched or on the mouth or whatever, it's like until that happens, if you're not grounded, like you said, my family, my wife, Christ and things of that nature, then when time comes and you get punched, so to speak, I think you're gonna fail and relapse.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you've got to have, and like he said, you may not be able to get the ideal workout in or whatever the ideal situation is in every single day, but just taking any action that's a positive action is better than doing nothing.
Yeah.
And if you fail, getting back up, just continuing that way. We talked about, I know, some of like the things that were affected by the bad. Now let's kind of look at the flip side. Now that you've been this a year and a half, right? So
yeah. Yes.
So you've lost 185,
180
pounds. And so what are some of the things that have been affected on the good side of things that improved in your life since you've made this change?
Absolutely. One is I just have energy. My schedule is intense. I have two jobs. I have one full-time where I get the luxury of working from home. But then I have another job where I usually start midnight or 1 o'clock and work till about 6 o'clock in the morning, roughly. And I don't know how I could do that.
Yeah.
If I didn't have energy, I always feel tired, but it's a good tired.
Yeah.
I'm tired from working.
Yep.
And but that's one aspect. I do deal with it, and I almost didn't say it, but I do deal with this, but not near as much. My episodes of depression are significantly less. I was dealing with it all like every day. Like I had issues every day. It started after Dad passed, but it's a hormonal imbalance in your life, and it's real.
Yeah.
People who try to say it's not, it's real. It's a real thing. You feel worthless. You don't know why you feel the way you feel, that you just do. But having been on this end of it, it's different. I don't feel that all the time. I have days but it's minimal.
That's good.
I sleep good. I get to play with my kids. I get to go outside when I have time to go hang out with them, and I just taught them how to ride bikes, like the two older ones finally. Because I couldn't get out there and hold the bike while they do it. And this time I was able to hold the bike and jog with them and, keep them from falling. Now they fall all the time, but that's good for them.
Yeah.
I'm able to, be there with my wife and for her, and it's changed our relationship for the massive positive.
That's awesome.
And now I get to just, kind of enjoy feeling good.
Yeah.
And I don't feel great all the time. Like I'm getting older. Not old, but I'm getting older. But I don't feel I'm not dying.
Yeah.
Like not dying as quick.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So it's been great. It's been a change, and my relationship all around, especially with the Lord, it's not perfect, never will be, but it's better.
Yeah. So those small things that obviously the big changes, but then those small things that you mentioned that you're getting back and be able to be present for and being a part of, like jogging down the side of the road.
Yeah.
Well, with working with your kids, you're not just present from the couch anymore.
Right.
You're present, actively, hands-on involved, and I imagine that's very rewarding. And it's sometimes people take that for granted until they say, especially if you've been on both ends, you've been really healthy and then you got overweight and then you're back getting it back and you're finding how much value that's there. And that could be even a warning to those that are starting to slip down that path of gaining the weight. Like, you're not going to realize what you have until it's gone. So kind of protect themselves against that. Because I'm sure that over the last 10 years, there's times that you're like, I wish I could have done, but now you're getting a chance to kind of redeem that and have that time down. And you just touched on it, but I was going to ask, how has this affected your spiritual life and discipline in other areas since losing the weight?
No, it's definitely been better. I'm able to actually implement things in my life, or I don't feel like I'm just going to fail at it. When you overcome something like this, you realize, oh, I can do a lot. And implementing certain disciplines in my everyday existence and in my life and in my spiritual life, it's a change. I don't fall asleep whenever I try to pray. I mean, I don't know if anybody else has done it, but I've done it plenty of times.
Yeah.
I'm able to actually have an existing relationship, not only with my family, not only with my friends. I don't feel as like shameful to talk with people like I used to, but with God. And I don't feel, again, we all have things to be shameful of, but there's that one massive less thing that I don't feel, like you said it earlier, unworthy to. So the spiritual life has changed.
That's awesome.
It has.
That's great. Yeah. That newfound confidence that comes with completing something that's hard. And it's like, I can do hard things. And it sets you up for success in so many other areas of life.
Yeah.
Because now you're like, whatever next thing comes your way, you're like, oh, I can do that because I did this. And that really
when you found your whys, you said you'd show up to the gym. I know you went to Crunch and you did their program. Now that could be intimidating because then now your confidence and ability, and now you're out there. Now you know your why? People have a why, but they're like, how do I implement it? And you saw there was an opportunity for competition. So what got you to join it? And then like when you were going through it, like, man, was it just pure like, man, I can't mess this up?
Yeah. I think what got me to join it is there's an opportunity to win some money. And the first time I did it, I won the local, which was nice. I didn't win the national. I was second.
That's really good.
That was frustrating. But putting myself in that situation gave me a reason to keep doing it. When you try to implement the why, it's hard. So you got to give yourself a reason for the why. I think the reason I wanted to do it is to see if I could. And I'd already started losing some weight, and I wanted to hit a specific threshold. I didn't know if I was going to hit or not, but I wanted to. I wanted to try. And I was, I think the first time I did it, I was about 300 and maybe like 30 something, 39 pounds. And when I finished it, I think it was 6 or 8 weeks. It was 299. It's such a huge mountain to get over for me, because I hadn't been under 300 in 2 or 3 years at that point, and I didn't think I was ever going to. I didn't know if I ever was. And now I'm on the precipice of being under 200.
Wow.
And I never thought that was possible. But when I decided to do that, I had that as a why, and then I put myself out there.
Yeah.
I had that as a why, and then I had all the other reasons for it. And you just make the whys. There's plenty of them out there. There's reasons for it, but if those don't work, find other reasons.
Yeah.
Find other ways. Find other things that will make you want to do it.
Yeah, I think you could flip it when you said you were eating like the junk food. You can flip it to a person who wants it. They will get it. You know what I mean? Like they will find their why. So you're like, man, just take that hunger for, like you said, like the drug of food. You'll find a way around it. You'll word it. You'll make it. I got to run to the store, and it's like you'll find a way to get it. Well, then just flip it with that vigorous and flip it around to say, I will find a way to not do it. I mean, because when you put yourself out there, was that when you did that challenge? Was that the time you lost the most amount of weight?
Yes.
And that okay, and that was because you put yourself out there, and then you had what you say you had a structure that you could follow that helped you achieve it. You weren't just going out there throwing dumbbells around the gym.
No, I was set up on a weight program.
Okay.
I was set up on a thing, and I followed it, and I adjusted it to me and what I could do. But then as time went on, I was able to do more and more and more, and then now I'm at a different point of that.
Yeah. So, and just to give context to the listeners, that Crunch Fitness thing, it was a competition both locally and nationally to lose not the most weight, but the biggest transformation. And you came first locally, and then second nationally.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we're going to try to wrap this up.
Sure.
For a man who's where you used to be, unhappy with his weight, ashamed, has started and failed, and just doesn't enjoy life, what would you say is something that what would you tell him to do first?
Step on the scale. Know where you're at. You know what you look like. You avoid it. I know I did. But get where you know where you are, so you can know where to go. You can't know where to go if you don't know where you are.
Yeah.
It's like a GPS. You can't put in a destination without putting in your location first.
It's true.
And when I stepped on the scale and I saw where I was at 385 pounds at my highest, that was shocking. And it didn't happen right away. And it started right after I saw that. It was at least 2 or 3 months before I said, no, I can't do this anymore. But I knew where I was. And that's what changed. That would be my first thing to tell them. Like you got to get over that fear, because it's a fear. It's an absolute. You're afraid to do that.
Yeah.
Because you've avoided it for years, and you're like, well, whenever I was in high school, I was
just kind of living on the glory days type thing. Yeah. So it's a matter of acknowledging where you're at, confronting that fear that you just keep ignoring, and just be honest and real with yourself, because that is the starting point. They say was the first step of recovery is acknowledging you have a problem.
Exactly.
So acknowledging it, but acknowledging it specifically. I weigh this much, and then I guess probably the next thing would be setting the goal.
Setting a goal, setting a plan.
Setting a plan. So what is one thing that they step on the scale, they know what they weigh. What is one thing they need to stop doing immediately to start this process?
Sodas and sugary drinks. It'll change in a short amount of time, you'll see a difference.
Cutting out sugar, cutting out carbonation.
Cutting out carbonated, um, I would say, you know, sometimes you can have carbonation without the sugar.
Mm-hmm.
If you're wanting to do that, that's fine. But I would say cut it all out. You can't breathe right when you do it.
Mm-hmm.
It messes with your lungs. It does. But cutting out the sodas and cutting out the drinks, if you do that week one, you'd be shocked what would happen. You step on the scale the first time, and you step on the scale in a week, and you're like, oh wow, I lost this much amount. That's all I did. I didn't change anything else. I just cut this out. You'll actually find that you're not as craving things either, because they make you crave.
Yeah.
It's the sugar. It's the sugar in it.
That high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
It's designed to make you want more.
Exactly.
And hungrier. You know.
So he's got to stop. You cut out the soda, cut out the sugary drinks, and then maybe on the more of the less physical side, but on the mental side, stop making excuses. Or
Stop making excuses. There are plenty of reasons that you can give yourself to do this, but there are a mountain and more important reasons to not be that way.
Yeah.
There's people out there that depend on you. There's people out there that depend on me to be better.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not, and I could fail tomorrow, and this could all turn around, and I could gain all the way back tomorrow. It happened to my dad, and he died. And there were people that depended on him. My mom depended on him. We did.
Mm-hmm.
And he was gone. And I know he's in a better place now. I know that he wouldn't trade where he's at for anything.
Yeah.
But I also know him that this is not how he wanted to do this. This is not how he wanted to go. And just because you failed today doesn't mean you got to fail tomorrow.
Yep. You're getting back up. What is one simple system he can put in place this week to start seeing progress?
Get a calorie count app. That would help. Don't change your diet. Just put in there what you ate that day. Put in there what you drank that day. Put in there if you did any kind of exercise. You know, there's so many apps now that are free that you can put in there, and then it's realizing where you are. It's knowing where you are.
That's another starting location.
Location.
Is there an app that you like that you prefer to use that was easy for you?
Yeah, MyFitnessPal is what I use the most.
And you put everything in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't as much anymore because I know what's what. Like I know most of what I'm eating. Now sometimes I'll indulge. If you can't enjoy it every once in a while, it's not worth it. But it's not. Again, it's minimal.
Yeah, it's very very intentional. You're aware of what you're doing. It's not something you do without thinking about it.
Correct.
Yeah.
But that's when I started doing that, and I started like adding the calories, and I'm like, how many people am I eating for? You know, it was eye opening.
Yeah. And I think so. I would say it's a requirement for that first step.
Absolutely.
The first start, because like you said, you've been doing it for a year and a half now. You know what you're doing. It's not as important now, even though you still do it. But when you're first starting, don't try to rely on, put it down and actually know exactly what you're eating and what you're drinking and all of that. And don't forget to log your sauces and your dipping sauces and your syrups. Because let's say you go to Chick-fil-A, right? And I think their Chick-fil-A sauce little packets like 60 calories or something 80. Like that, 80 calories, and got a bunch of sugar in it and things like that. And it's like I ate grilled chicken nuggets. I don't know what's wrong. It's like you used 4 Chick-fil-A sauces.
A serving size of Chick-fil-A sauce is 160 calories.
Wow. See, that's something you don't really pay attention to until you start logging.
Oh yeah.
And you start noticing.
And I was in college. I used to work at Chick-fil-A. I would have 8 sauces with a meal of mine. I could.
Yeah.
Because I relied on my physical. But I was also in college, and my metabolism was through the roof too. So
it really is just logging everything and really just tracking everything for the first however long, just so you know what you're doing. Okay, well, I got one more question for you.
Sure.
After you overlooking everything you've been through and have experienced in life now at this point, not only with your physical health and your fitness, but also in every other aspect of life, if you could go back in time to your 20-year-old self.
Oh my.
20-year-old. That's the athletic James.
That's the
athletic James. And give yourself one piece of advice to help you navigate life to where you are now, what would it be?
trust in God more. He has to be the reason. You know, if we're talking about the health aspect of it, like, gotta put God first. And he has to be. He has to be number one. And you'll find the reasons. My 20-year-old self didn't know my wife. You know, I didn't know if I was gonna have kids. You know, I didn't know anything really at that time. And you're enough. You're good enough to not let yourself get that way. You don't have to. You don't have to let yourself get to that point. And you know, you can't know the future. You can't know what's going to happen.
Right.
You just don't. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Tragedy can happen tomorrow. It can change your whole world. The only thing that is constant in life, this, I think we all know this, is God.
Mm-hmm.
We know that He's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and forever. He's the only constant truth. And if I made it more about Him and I didn't, I mean, I was away from God for years. I was going to church. I was involved, but I wasn't with Him. I'm not as involved now, but I feel like I'm I'm closer to Him now than I ever was before, because I made it about Him.
Yeah.
And He gave me the reasons. He was the reason, but I have reasons past that. If I went to my 20-year-old self and I had to look at that, you know it all in the face and say, you know, what you're doing is fine, but it needs to be more about Him. Find and then find the why. Keep the why, and don't let the things of life knock you down and keep you down. And it's probably the hardest thing for somebody to do
is to get back up.
Yeah. Because I got knocked down, and it took me years to get back up.
So keeping God first and doing the thing like you in 20, you're in Bible college, doing the right things, but not necessarily for the right reasons all the time, and just putting God first and realizing that He is the one constant thing that we can depend on. And if you're building on the shifting sands, right, then something's going to shift, something's going to fall apart.
Yeah.
If it's built on God, whenever you fall down, the structure's still here, the foundation's still sure, I can get back up. And that's really good advice. Well, Brother James, thank you very much for agreeing to the interview.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed it, and I think it's going to help some men out there that may be struggling with fitness, or even just the thought of shame. I think it's going to help them out a lot. So
yeah, I hope it does. I really do.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you guys for watching the Iron Circle podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed it. And catch Brother James inside the Iron Circle. He's in there. So check us out. All right. Thank you.